right, so we'll call the meeting to order at 6:33 p.m. and open with a salute to the flag. Are we using Jeff's flag? There it is. Okay.
I have a very cute one today.
Okay, great.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, for liberty and justice for all.
Awesome! Well done.
I love those. That's awesome. Thank you. Okay, I think we had one minor agenda change. We were removing Brian from being appointed as a cleaner. But other than that, Celeste, are there any changes?
There are no changes.
Okay. We'll at this time take a minute and open up privilege of the floor. Does anyone from the public want to address the board? Okay. So we will begin this evening with our cabinet reports and updates. And I don't know which order you guys are going in, so I'll let you tell me.
Elementary school first. Polly Benjamin's going to take care of that. Andrea is out sick today.
Okay.
Go ahead, Polly.
Good evening. So we're very excited at the Dwaynesburg Elementary School. We figured out a way to continue our tradition of holding a family literacy night around this time each year. We're going to host a fully virtual event that's going to have video links recorded from our teachers. And our theme is Taco Tuesday. And we'll be featuring the work of Adam Rubin, who's the author of the Dragons Love Tacos books and a few others. And we're going to kick off the day on Tuesday, March 30th. That's our designated Taco Tuesday with a Dress Like a Dragon Day. We'll be sending some materials home with all of our UPK through second graders that they can use to engage with our video links that the teachers are preparing. So we're very excited about it, and we think it's going to be a lot of fun, and that will be next week.
Thank you, Paul. Anybody have any questions? Okay. Moving on, I guess Jody.
All right. That's me. So first thing I just want to draw attention to, I don't have anything to go along with the picture, but I know that a number of you were pretty taken aback when I showed the video of what the hallways were like. So this is a fresh off the press picture of our kids sitting outside eating lunch today. This is a group of 8th graders. So I thought that would put a smile on people's faces to see that that kind of is a little bit normal. Kids were outside, they were social distance, but it was kind of it was nice just to hear their laughing, and my window was open, so it drew my attention, which made me go outside and take a picture. So I wanted to show you all of that. So see, we are getting back into normalcy in the high school. So we did have our first equity day in the high school last Friday, and it was really great. We did a couple of different events, which really got the kids thinking and talking, and they were able to share with each other kind of like how they see themselves. Jim kicked it off with saying, you know, he sees himself as a father and a husband and a brother, and that kind of led the kids down that path of, you know, how do I see myself too? So it was a great chance for kids to kind of get together with their teachers and speak about things that weren't really math and science and social, but about how to be people. So that was a great thing. And Jim's probably going to talk a little bit more about it, what we're moving forward with other districts. I know at the last board meeting, I mentioned that we are going to be doing block scheduling. We are not at this point. I'm hoping to roll it out in the next school year because I did a survey with the teachers, and really the feedback that we got was they were not against it. They just feel like they needed a little bit more knowledge and training on it. So that's the direction that we're going to head. We're going to do some professional development and really teach teachers how to do some project-based learning and how to teach in a 72 or an 80-minute block of time, because that does take some time to learn that. So before rolling it out, we're going to spend some time doing that. So we are moving forward the typical schedule that you are all pretty used to seeing in the high school. As my picture indicates, I'm a little tired of the virtual world right now. So like my picture of the kids eating lunch. So we are moving forward with scheduling in-person awards and NHS ceremony for the kids. Unfortunately, we won't be able to invite the parents, but we are going to have the kids participate in it, and we will live stream it just like we do for basketball and all of that stuff. I'm kind of done with the whole Google streaming, whatever, with the kids. So right now, our plan is to have NHS ceremony on the 13th. And I think we're going to try to do it during that academic day. So I don't have to worry about transportation for kids. They don't have to miss any sporting events because that's such a limited basis right now that they're getting to participate. So we'll probably do it towards the end of the day. And the awards ceremony will happen on the 11th of May. And again, that will happen during the day. And the kids will be in person. We will live stream it and video it for the parents to watch. So very excited about that. As I was really hoping for, I have had a number of students returning almost every day. I get a new email from a parent telling me that their child's going to return to in-person instruction, which is exactly what we want. We want the kids back in our building. So as of this morning, I had 20 students who are returning, which is really pretty good. So as of the 12th, that will be the very first day of our new marking period. And we will have our kids, we'll welcome those 20, and I'm hoping more, back into the building on the 12th. And then finally, because, and I know that Dr. Niedermeyer is going to speak a little bit more about the regents and what's been coming out from the state. But with all of the changes, we are going to move forward with doing a finals week so that every one of our teachers, except for the special areas, will be doing finals for the last week and a half of school, because right now we don't have regents exams in all of the courses that we typically would. So I met with the coordinators today. We're developing a schedule, which I'm hoping to have put out before we all head out on break so that parents know what day their kids will be coming in to take a final. And again, you know, my hope is to do it during the academic day so that we can still provide transportation for our younger kids. So the schedule will look very similar to a Regents schedule, but it will just encompass all of our classes. So only certain kids will come at certain times. So lots of fun things happening in the high school. So great place to be.
Thank you, Jody. Does anybody have any questions? Okay. Penny, are we getting, yep, fall 2 sports.
Yeah. So this is our first week. Fall 2 sports are underway. We transitioned from winter last week. Swim actually had its first virtual meet last Friday. They defeated Ravenna 104-70. And they're going ahead and planning their senior night will be this Friday. Again, we're trying to do those senior nights a little earlier this year. In the event that hopefully it doesn't happen, but in the event either some teams that we have to play are quarantined or we do, and we just want to make sure we get those senior nights in. So they're a little bit earlier this year. Volleyball is playing right now versus McKeel. I think they were up, but I'm not really sure. I can't really see the board.
No, I'm getting text messages, Penny. We're down right now.
Okay, I was going to say we were.
My
up,
daughter in the other room
we're
watching
down.
the game.
Football, we are really hoping that this is our first game. This will be our first game, and it's versus Lake George. We're really hoping that we can hold that on our own field. This Saturday it'll be at 2:30. If not, if the field's really not ready, we have a backup plan. We'll be at Ravenna Selkirk, Coyman Selkirk on Friday night at 6 o'clock. They've graciously allowed us to move the game there if we have to. But I'm hoping that with the weather, everything's looking good out there, better than we could have hoped for right now. Boys soccer, that has changed this Friday night. It will not be against Loudonville Christian. We will play Sharon Springs this Friday night, and that will be at Byrne. athletes will be given 2 guest passes each. They can do with those guest passes. Hopefully they're giving them to parents or family members. And those passes are good at whether we are home or whether we are traveling, as long as we are not at a neutral site. So when we're at AFRMS, or if we had a neutral site game at another turf field, because we couldn't, all of the schools couldn't accommodate the spectators, neutral fields, we're not allowed to have guests. So, but hopefully going forward, again, boys soccer, the fields are looking really good. So we're hoping that that will be home. It will be at BKW, but it will be a home match on Friday night. And girls soccer, that too has changed. That will be played at AFRMS. That's a McKeel's home game. They wanted to keep that as a home game. So that will be 9:00 at AFRMS on Saturday. So that's fall 2. And we just received notice that they've moved the opening of spring sports up a week. So we will be opening registration for spring sports next week.
Penny, for the outdoor sports, are we going to be able to stream them as well?
We're hoping so. We're not sure. Joe's working on the soccer field, whether or not the hotspot will work that far. But if all else fails, we're planning on recording it and then posting the video after the game is over. It all depends on the internet connection for those outdoor events.
They start playing across from our house. We can socially distance on our deck and allow people to watch from here.
I figure they'll be parked along the road.
Probably. Okay. Any questions for Penny? Thank you, Penny.
I just have a comment that I appreciate that we opened up academic study hall for students to stay after school for practices. So as a parent of an athlete, that's been a huge help. So thank you both to Jody and Penny for making that happen. I appreciate it.
Okay, Jim, I think we're on to you.
Thank you. I have 3 topics to talk about. One is the One House budgets, the legislative budgets that came out a little bit ago. So I'll talk about those. And then the American Rescue Plan, which is the new stimulus package that was passed by the federal government. And then I'll talk a little bit about state assessments. So the American Rescue Plan is one of those things that sounds really great when you first hear about it. I will say, though, that it made me think of, there was a TV show that was on a couple of times called The Lottery Ruined My Life. And so it makes me think of that, because it's important that whenever a pot of money is made available to our school, we think about, first we think about what our goals are, and we don't get kind of pulled off track by thinking about how we can use the money. And so sometimes it's very difficult to use the money, and it only has like a couple of different uses, and those uses might not be the things that we need the money for. So we could see about $719,000 based on estimations. This money would likely be available to us through the 23-24 school year. And so what we don't want to do is we don't want to use the money for things that can create potential funding cliffs for us in the future. So it's really important that one-time money be used for one-time purchases, not things that need a lot of maintenance. So I think that what may happen is that you may hear some schools doing a lot of hiring. And so what's going to end up happening at those school districts is that those folks will end up getting laid off in 2 years when there's a gigantic funding cliff. So we also don't know how we're going to be able to access that money yet. And it's just really important that we don't adapt our needs to fit the money. So if the money helps us meet our needs, then that's great. I know that that's a bit of a downer when we see headlines saying that the federal government is sending our schools lots of money, but it is important to remember that we don't want the money to create a bigger problem for us than we already might have by the funding cliff that was created with the first round of stimulus money. So keep that in mind. I know it's a downer position to be in. Certainly, it's better than the alternative. However, there are some downsides to that too. I did want to talk about the one house budgets as well versus the executive budget. So if you're new to this process, so the governor releases his executive budget, then the Assembly and the Senate release their one house budgets. And then there's a period of reconciliation where we are right now. And then by April 1st, the reconciled budget is due. And so hopefully we do see an on-time budget this year. But I wanted to kind of share some differences between the executive budget, which we've been using to, over the last several weeks when we do our workshops on the budget, we've really been using that executive budget, which has some things in it that are problematic. So for instance, that CARES Act money, so that it's actually the second pot of stimulus money that is in the budget right now. If you remember in the executive budget, what the executive branch has done is they've actually carved out $216,000 from our aid, and they've supplanted it with this federal money, which creates that cliff that I was just talking about, a smaller cliff, a $216,000 one instead of a $700,000 one. So if we had this plus the other, we could be looking at a big, gigantic cliff that is insurmountable, and we definitely don't want to be in that situation. However, in the one house budget, in both one house budgets, the Assembly and the Senate choose to use the stimulus money from the federal government to supplement the state aid and not to supplant it. So that is a super important development. It was our goal as superintendents in the region to do a lot of advocacy to make sure that all of our representatives knew exactly what was happening and knew exactly that there was a shell game that was being played, and that shell game was going to result in deficits to schools in 2 years. So the legislature got the message, is not going to let that happen. We'll see where things end up. Foundation aid. So if you recall, the foundation aid was frozen at 1920 levels, which I think is also the same level as 1819. Is that right, Jeff? Yeah, so it's actually the foundation aid is frozen at levels as the same as 1819. And so flat foundation aid in the executive budget. The one house budget, both one house budgets present a significant increase to foundation aid with the goal of getting schools back to where they should be by, I think, 23, 24. And so they're actually proposing a substantial increase in foundation aid. So very different than the governor's budget. The other thing that's different are those expense-based aid categories. So if you remember me talking about it, I think I said it in like 4 meetings in a row, where we talked about all of those aid categories that the executive budget was attempting to consolidate. There was 11 categories, including BOE aid, transportation aid, and they were going to put it all in one block grant. And so what that was going to do over time was allow them to make cuts to these categories, and we wouldn't know what they were cutting. And they were actually going to freeze all those aid categories at and it also was going to limit our 2020 transportation aid, so that money that we were expending by keeping drivers employed, if you recall, that was money that was not aidable. And so what the one house budget does is it rejects the consolidation. Absolutely no one on either side of the aisle that we talked to was in favor of doing that. That's something that the governor attempts to do every year, and every year the legislature has to beat that back. and it also covers that 2020 transportation expense. So again, we'll see where things end up. The executive budget was also attempting to reduce that STAR exemption reimbursement to districts. That's also been rejected by the One House budget. And there's a couple of additional things that both legislative houses were considering. One is a retirement incentive. So there's actually a couple of different incentives that are out there. So we'll be watching that closely to see if it looks like that's going to happen. And then, of course, TRS, which staff members might be eligible. That's something that we don't have to take as a district and might not be advantageous for us to take, but we'll watch it closely when and if that comes to pass. And then the other difference really is that both One House budgets included a provision to allow districts to hold additional fund balance. So right now we're able to hold on to 4% in fund balance, which acts as an account for us that helps us guard against things like things that happened this year. But capping the size of a district's piggy bank at 4% is very low. Increasing that to 8% is great. Increasing it to 6% is better than 4%. And so we hope that happens as well. So big differences between the executive budget, which is really kind of pessimistic, and the One House budget, which is kind of a fairy tale. And so hopefully what's going to happen is someplace in the middle, which is still more positive than the outlook was after the executive branch released their budget. So it looks promising, but we'll see what happens on April 1st. Also wanted to talk about state assessments. So it's important to remember that New York State put forward a waiver to cancel both 3 through 8 tests and Regents exams, the required Regents exams. And so what happened when New York State proposed that is that the federal government sent word out to all states that had done that they would not be granting these waivers, that it was important for districts to know where their kids were, and it was impossible to know that without these federally mandated tests. And so the state of New York did a couple things. The first thing they did was they asked all of the schools across New York State what methods we use to assess kids. And it won't surprise you that, in fact, it turns out teachers have been assessing kids right along and know very well where kids are. And they assess them in lots of different ways, both with authentic assessments, with projects, with vendor-provided, nationally normed tests, with department-created assessments. And so it's really not necessary to us to have state tests provided to us to be able to assess. And so they put that out to the federal government and gave them another waiver that asked for relief in the mandate to give all those ESSA required tests. And so I like the state's attitude in this particular case to be denied and then to submit again to make them actually deny you in writing, I think is kind of funny. But it's also the very first time that New York State has sent out guidance that has really spelled out the reason why we're giving these tests this year. And it's basically, make no mistake, we're giving these tests because we're required to statute. It's a weird position for me to be in, and I know it's a weird position for Jody and Andrea to be in, because typically we're in the position where we learn a lot from these state tests, and we're encouraging people to take them seriously. This year, we're being put in a very special position, which is that we're giving tests that even the state of New York does not want to give. So just to go through what the differences are, right? So the 3rd through 8th, so what the state has done is they've whittled these tests away to the bare minimum that they have to provide by federal law. So they've whittled the 3 through 8th grade state assessments down to 1 day. So they'll only be the session 1 tests. We're going to get the other sessions too. We're allowed to use the if we'd like to give those and just do local assessments using those, we can. There's not going to be any field test questions, which means that even that session 1 administration will be shorter than in the past. They're getting rid of the practical science parts of exams. They've also divorced school accountability from these assessment results. So schools won't be held accountable if all their students do poorly. They've said that there will be no remote administration of these exams allowed, so we won't be able to give them to our students who are remote. They've actually said that there's no need for school districts to encourage remote learners to come in. We probably will make that option available. I'm not sure how many folks will avail themselves of that opportunity, but we probably will do that. And we also have the entire testing window to administer the state assessments. So that's 3rd through 8th grade. The Regents exams have also changed. So we're only going to administer the federally required exams. And so specifically, those are math, ELA, and science. But because different schools take different sciences first, earth science and biology are being given, but ELA and algebra are the other 2 that are generally used for that ESSER requirement. So students planning to take exams this year, the ones that are canceled and the ones that are federally required, are exempt from that requirement. So the course grades are going to be used for credit determination. The exams don't factor into credit determination or graduation requirement determination. The course grades can also be used for determining things like mastery and honors designation for diploma types. There are no lab minute requirements for the 2 science exams. Again, no school accountability for these exams, and we're not allowed to do remote administration of these tests too, but we'll probably offer the opportunity for remote students to come in to take the test if they would like to do that. I'll also say, because I found out today that it's optional for the student to put this test on their transcript. So if a student wants to take the algebra exam to see how they do, because they like tests and they feel like they'll do well and they want to challenge themselves, they're not going to be penalized for if they don't do as well as they might like. They get to choose whether or not that's visible to people later on their transcripts. So I know that people have some concerns about that and would like to be told which decisions to make on the 3rd through 8th grade exam or the Regents exam. Unfortunately, I cannot provide that assistance to them. However, these are the facts, and so people can make their own decisions regarding the administration of these exams and whether their kids will take them. And then my hope is that when we get back to kind of a normal situation, that these things are evaluated. I really do, I think that the Regents exams especially have a lot of integrity to them and have for a long time. And for a long time were the gold standard of state assessments. So things have happened over recent years that have made them lose some of that integrity. And I hope that next year is a good time to address how we regain some of that without making it hurt certain kids that just aren't great test takers. I think that there's a middle ground, but the 3rd through 8th grade tests are a different story because we've had so many different iterations of things, and it's difficult to say that those have had a lot of integrity for a long time, because that's just not the case. However, they do give us important information that we use for planning purposes. But we'll get that information from other assessments that we do locally. That having been said, does anybody have any questions on any of these topics, the state assessments or the budget or the rescue plan? Okay.
Thank you, Jim. I think we are going to move into Jeff's budget workshop if there are no questions for Jim.
Okay, so tonight we have our fourth and final budget work session.
You're muted, Jeff.
It's like I double clicked on the microphone. Okay, can you hear me now? All right, good. All right, so we'll have our fourth and final budget work session tonight. And tonight we'll be talking about the current budget status, which includes some work in instructional, library, guidance, health, and psych and social work, and also part of that special education. And the big question mark of state aid, and just a look at our revenue right now.
Jeff, you're muted again.
It's okay. I'll do the first couple of things on the budget status. So a couple of in senior high school.
You're cutting out a little bit, Jim. Yeah, you're cutting out just a little bit, unless it's just me.
We're losing it. Still bad?
That's
Okay.
better.
So we're adding that music teacher back to junior senior high school so that we'll be at full staff in music. Another thing that we're planning on doing is really taking a look at our curriculum development in K through 12. And so we'll be spending a little bit more this summer on curriculum development than we have in recent years to meet all of those strategic goals that we laid out at the beginning of the year. And making sure that we really emphasize the development of our staff. So not only making sure that people get the credit that they need to remain certified, but that they're gaining the capacity that we need to be successful as a school.
Okay, so hopefully I'm back. Every time I switch, it keeps cutting me out. We'll try this again. So this is a look right now at where our budget is. So it's a little bit different from the February 23rd, or yeah, I'm sorry, the March 9th draft. So we focus a little bit more on instructional practices, technology, PD, curriculum, and adds back that music teacher. So we are at right now $17,885,000, which is a 1.82% increase overall budget to budget. It represents only $320,000 from budget to budget. We are still remaining with that 1.95% tax levy increase, which leaves it at $160,396. So nothing has changed about the tax levy. So the amount that we are going out to the community has not changed since the last budget work session. So as Dr. Niedermeyer mentioned on the last slide, or on the previous slide, that curriculum development. So that's one of those things that we worked on since the last budget work session. We added that professional development back in, and then also looked at adding the assistant principal for the district.
Yep. So if I could just talk about that for a couple of seconds, just to make sure that everybody understands that direction. So the curriculum development I talked about, so that's just about every department has some curriculum development happening over the course of the summer. Elementary has a bunch of things going on. So we should see teachers around campus all summer long, which is great for me. The professional development for equity and inclusion, that's a brand new thing. So we were able to find a group called Generation Ready that works with schools to try to assist them in creating equity plans and doing audits of district practices. And it seems like a really comprehensive approach. And so we'll be doing some initial training this summer, probably with coordinators and counselors and some administrators, to build a core group that can then assist in training the rest of the staff. But it's not a one and done training by any means. It's very much a work in progress over multiple years approach to addressing equity and inclusion in our district. And then that last bit that Jeff just mentioned, the assistant principal coordinator of middle school programs, that's an add. So that's a position where we had reduced the position of director of instruction and athletics. And so with that reduction, we're really splitting that role into two things. One that's very different. The assistant principal coordinator of the middle school program is going to be very different. So not only is it going to provide support to the high school principal, but it's also going to be the point person for 6th through 8th grade for both behavior and academic stuff. So that is something that we think that now with these budget changes, we can responsibly add back so that it starts this summer and not mid-year next year. So we're looking forward to that. And then that other bit that we'll talk about a little bit later is the, as you know, the athletic director part of the position. We posted as a stipended position to the teachers. And so that part of that job will be a stipended position. Sorry, Jeff, go ahead.
Oh, it's okay. So this is just a big look at the different categories of the budget. So that administrative line that we had just talked about, it has gone up a little bit to reflect that administrator, that assistant principal. So with that in mind, though, this is still keep in mind that the tax levy, again, like I said earlier, is that the tax levy isn't changing. We're counting on the fact that they're telling us we're going to get more state aid. So we should be able to balance some of these expenses that we're trying to improve on instructional with the state aid that we're going to be getting in conjunction with the fund balance that we've been able to save. So this is a look at first look at our component budget while we are in our draft. So the administrative portion of the budget only represents 8.84% of our budget. The capital represents 18.15%, and the largest portion, the program portion, is at 73.01%. So just the administrative portion of the budget, it includes all of not only just the administrators, but it includes so much more. So it's the BOCES administrative costs, processing for the central office, salaries and benefits of administrators, supervisors, administrative and clerical staff as well, school board costs, tax collection costs, our legal costs as well. So we have attorney fees. Every school district's got an attorney, auditing costs, and property and insurance costs. So we also this is the section where we pay all of our insurance, not only for the building, but also for our buses. And so that's where all that comes out of. And then the program costs is where we fund everything for kids. So that's where you get the guidance, health, library, media, BOCES programs for kids, special education services, textbooks, any equipment that are used, is used for for athletics and transportation costs, except for buses. And then last but not least, then you got capital, which is paying for our debts and salaries and benefits for our maintenance and custodial staff, utility costs, some other general insurances, and any court-ordered costs, but currently we don't have any, knock on wood. So that would be the section that would come out of. State aid, big question mark. it's not really worth giving you the same slide that you've seen several times. So we're right now, our state aid number is at $8,251,992, and that represents 14,771 over last year. So it's really remaining flat. So we get that, third year in a row flat from foundation aid, and also we're using some additional fund balance over prior years. So in prior years, again, we've used about somewhere around 3.5%, 4%, maybe 4.5% in fund balance to balance our budget. This year, going into 21-22, we're looking at using a little over $1 million, which represents 5.72% of the overall budget. So we're taking that money that we saved, some of that fund balance that we saved in 1920 from operational costs not occurring, and putting it into the 21-22 school year to balance that budget out. So first look, so tonight we'll talk about instructional. So just a little quick summary of some of the things that are in the instructional budget. The instructional budget, pretty large portion of the budget, very important section of the budget. So teacher salaries, including the substitutes, teacher assistants, teacher aides, anything you think of that, has to do with the classroom, it's pretty much right in this section. So this is where we get our general supplies, tuition, also for instructional placements or GED. So if you have a kid that's attending a GED program, it comes out of here. Textbooks money. Of course, some textbook money is actually aidable, but there are some, sometimes we actually budget a little bit more in textbook funds just to make sure that we actually are able to take advantage of all the opportunities in getting our state aid for textbooks. And also a pretty large portion of the instructional budget is the regular education costs from BOCES, contractual services that we use a lot for, anything from teacher PD to maybe services or coaches that we would use in the district for teachers. Also, so in the 2280 code would be the BOCES CTE students. So this is how we pay for our students to go and attend CTE programs, either at Schoharie, Albany, or down at Mohonasen if we were to send any kids down to the Mohonasen CT Center. And then the 2610 code, looking at all costs that are tied to libraries, including salaries, supplies, books, and BOCES subscriptions as well. So with the library, we subscribe to some of the BOCES services that give resources on the web, so kids can do research projects through those subscriptions as well. Also, part of the instructional budget would be the guidance. I won't read every single line for you. I know that I'm reading a lot. So guidance, health insurance, or health salaries for our nurses, and anything that's required for supplies and all that for health. We also have psychologist salaries and anything that goes with that, along with social worker salaries and supplies in these portions of the budget. So to lump them all together, this is a look, just a glimpse at what that instructional budget looks like. It is increasing over, since the 2021 school year budget, so the current year budget, it's increasing a little bit, going up to that $5,266,569, and this represents any of the additions that we added to this budget is anything that would be contractual for salaries, and then also a summer program at the elementary school, professional development, curriculum development, and the equity and inclusion team training as well. The administrative budget, it also includes the curriculum development, so that's also going to have some increase as well, because we've increased those curriculum development opportunities so that better prepared for next year. The administrative salaries support, including any of the clerical staff in that area, and then contractual expenses that are tied to administrative, and then supplies. And this is a look at the the administrative budget. You'll notice it has increased a little bit, but that's also because we've increased the curriculum development availability and adding that assistant principal position. So as a part of the instructional budget is also the special education. I'm breaking this out because special education is a large portion of the budget, and it's because of the large expenses that are tied to outplacements. So special education salaries, support salaries as well. So this also includes like our special education, our aides that support the teachers in the classroom. Anyone that is supporting any students with disabilities, that's going to be in this category. Supplies that go with any of the special education costs. Also, a big portion of it is the tuition costs. So you got the private placements. So if we're sending any kids to any private placements outside of the district, also we have special education services with BOCES too. So there are some placements where kids are placed in schools where they're supported, where they're actually a BOCES program. And this is a look at the special education budget. So we actually reduced it a little bit because projected next year, just looking at the budget, it looks like we will not need all of that extra tuition money. So looking at that tuition line, I've actually reduced that tuition line a little bit to balance the budget out a little bit so that we don't create too much fund balance in that area. So these reductions include that private placement tuition, the BOCES placement tuition, and just a slight reduction in some of the salaries to reflect the actual current staffing that we have in place. And then we'll be asking the community also on Proposition 2 for a purchase of 2 30-passenger buses and 1 71-passenger bus. All of those buses will be fueled with gasoline. The purchase will not exceed $242,000. Just a note also, I'd like to say that when we purchase buses with the for our district, we always make sure that I wait until the end of the year to borrow that money for the buses. So it kind of saves us money on interest, or it shows us on the extra, on the principal. So we take out less because we're able to make those payments earlier on in the year. And then you take out the loan at the end of the year and you finance the buses at a lower rate. Looking forward, so we're looking at the next time that we meet will be April 13th, and that'll be the community budget presentation where the board would adopt the budget. So which will lead us up to the public budget hearing on May 4th, and then the budget vote on May 18th at the junior senior high school.
So now,
Thank you, Jim.
now it's time to talk about where we are with the budget. So we've presented all of the pieces of the budget. And tonight we talked about the instructional section, special ed, state aid, and you have somewhat of a revenue idea, although we don't have the finalized numbers yet. So it's not forever hold your peace this time. We'll certainly be talking about the budget some more, but it is the last time where you'll see this in kind of piecemeal rough draft form. So does anybody have any questions or anything that you saw that you're not totally comfortable with that we can go over? I think Jeff, it's been great to work with Jeff on this. I think that a very conservative approach to keeping a budget and maintaining the district finances that I think has lasted. It's been done over many years, and I think it's put the district in a really good position. And now that it seems like it might be a little bit rosier than we thought it might be, we're in pretty good shape to do some things to progress our district forward. So.
I agree. Jeff, I appreciate the level of detail that you take us through at each meeting. It's helpful. We haven't had that degree in years past, so I think we're all learning from it a little bit more. So thank you for taking the time to do that. And thank you for continually iterating and not just taking a number and going with it.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
And if you're interested, I could use some work with my budget at home. So I'm out here finding things. But thank you very much on behalf of the community. Okay, if there are no questions, I think we are good to move forward. So I'm going to ask you guys forgiveness ahead of time. I have my cheat sheet of my notes next to me. I created my own one-pager agenda to make sure I don't get lost through this, but I think our next step is the presentation and approval of prior Board of Education meeting minutes. We're looking for approval of minutes of March 9th, 2021. The recommendation that the Board of Education accept the meeting minutes from the March 9th, 2021 meeting as submitted. Do I have a motion?
I'll make a motion.
Thank you, Diane. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Betsy. Any questions or comments? If not, all those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, thank you. Moving on to standing committee reports. I believe policy met, education committee met before this meeting. If you guys are good, I'll give a brief update. Our primary focus is on looking at the survey results that came back for students who have been doing remote learning, taking a look at what that indicates for us, what intel that gives us on how we might approach the possibility of remote learning in the fall of this year. So no decisions, no recommendations, just kind of continuing to monitor. I think we said there's more information that will continue to come and evolve, and we'll continue to monitor that situation. The general consensus is there should probably be some option, but we're not quite sure what the option might look like, whether that's through us directly or a consortium or whatnot. Any other committee members have a comment on that?
I would add to that definitely an option that minimized the gift.
Great. Thank you, Jim. So Teresa, was there a policy meeting?
We actually didn't have a policy meeting yet. We're still waiting for Erie to get the larger manual back to us. We do have a meeting scheduled for April 27th now, just to update and look into some new policies. But hopefully in the meantime, before April 27th, hopefully we'll get the big binder from Erie and we'll be good to go with that to present to the entire board.
Sounds good. Shane, there might have been buildings and grounds. Is that correct?
No, we didn't have any building and grounds, but we do have some upcoming interviews with potential architects for the district. That's going to be next week. There's 3 interviews.
Okay, great. Anybody else need? All right, thank you. Moving on to the next area of our agenda, we have board announcement. And Celeste, I think I'm just acknowledging now. So if you tell me I need to get anything else, let me know, interrupt, please. This is an acknowledge board member resignation. The Board of Education accepts the resignation of board member and president Camille Sanyo Enders effective March 12th, 2021, declares her seat vacant and thanks her for her several years of service. In regard to the vacancy left by Ms. Sanyo Enders' resignation, the seat will be left vacant until the next regular election on May 18th, 2021, at which time the elected board candidate who garners the 4th highest vote will fill the seat commencing on May 19th, 2021, or as soon thereafter as the individual may be sworn in and expiring on June 30th, 2023. I believe we need to then move to a reorg of sort. Jim, do you want to walk us through and kind of set this up for us?
Sure. So actually, this might be something that Celeste really has more history doing. Celeste, do you want to go through the process?
Yep. What I have to do is accept nominations for president and vice president, and then I have to swear you folks in, and then you'll have to stop in and sign your paperwork when it's convenient. So like on a reorg meeting from your board, you just take nominations for who will be president and vice president.
Okay. Thanks. So do we have any nominations for president?
Well, Deb, first I would like to request some clarification.
Okay.
The way I read our existing board policy is that there is only an election during the July reorganization meeting. And, conceptually, I'm supportive of, this proposed election, but I'm just not sure it's allowed under our policy. So I'm wondering if perhaps, someone else has an opinion on that, or,
Yeah, I have an opinion. And that's that. So I know the policy that you're talking about. So the policy does say that that's when the elections will take place. However, this is policy 1320, I think. And it does say that the vice president will act as president until a new president is elected. But later on in that same policy, I think it says something like in case of in case of vacancy until a new president is elected. So it's not really clear to me that it also says that you can't have an election midway through. So I did confer with our school attorney to ask her what we should do in this case, if the vice president should just be appointed, because there's also no policy that says that the vice president automatically assumes the role of the president. And she suggested that it would be prudent to elect a president because the president who's just resigned isn't planning on coming back. It's not a short-term fix. It's until the end of the school year. So really what we need to do, it's her advice that we elect a president. If we do elect a president and need to do a vice presidential nomination and election, we could do that too. But depending on who that person might be, we wouldn't have to do a vice president. So that was her advice. Take that for what it's worth. I tend to agree that we need somebody that's permanent rather than somebody who's, just filling it in interim.
Do any other board members have, Teresa, your hand's up? Do you have a question?
It is, yeah. Well, I think probably policy should probably look at this and make it clearer for in the future. It sounds like we have to make a decision now so that we can move forward and work as a group and have a leader. So I'm in favor of that, but I am also in favor of policy, looking at the policy so we can have something that's absolutely clear in the future, because things happen in people's lives and they have to step down. Especially in volunteer positions, it happens quite often. So I think we need something more clear for the future.
Okay, Betsy, I see a thumbs up there. Anybody else? Everybody good with that approach? Anybody not good with that approach? Okay. Thank you, Shane, for bringing that up. That'll be good. Policy can take a look at that. I think that will definitely be useful in the future. So I will open up again and ask, are there any nominations for president?
I nominate Deb.
Okay. Do we take a second on that, Celeste?
You would, yes.
I'll
Okay.
second that.
Okay, Teresa, I saw Betsy's hand up as well. Are there any other nominations for president? Okay.
I have a question. Are we nominating a vice president as well?
If I accept this.
Okay.
That's the next question is, would you accept the president?
Yes, I'll accept. And Celeste, do you conduct a vote of everybody?
Yep.
Okay.
Okay. I have two computers going here, so. Okay. Tony, yay or nay?
Yay. Sorry.
Okay, that's okay. All right, Diane?
Yay.
Shane?
Yay.
Okay. Teresa?
Yay.
And Betsy?
Yay.
Okay. Deb, you will be our new vice president.
President.
And I can swear you in now, or we can do it together. It doesn't matter.
We can wait. We can go ahead with the vice president nominations.
Okay.
We have a nomination for vice president.
I'd like to nominate Shane Mitchell, please.
Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Shane, do you accept the nomination?
Yes.
He had to
Are there
think
any-
about that.
Are there any other nominations for vice president? Okay.
Okay. Tony.
Yay.
Okay. Diane.
Yay.
Deb.
Yay.
Teresa.
Yay.
Betsy.
Yay.
Okay. Shane, you'll be our new vice president. Deb, you will be our president. Now, if you will please stand and raise your right hand and insert your name when I get to it. Okay, so I'm going to say, do you, and you state your name. Okay. Do you
Deb Greer.
Shane Mitchell.
solemnly swear that you will support the Constitution of the United States of America and the Constitution of the State of New York, and that you will faithfully discharge, according to the best of your ability, the duties of the office of President and Vice President?
I do.
I do.
Okay. I'm in the office from 8 to 4. When you want to make an appointment, stop in. I'll just have to sign the forms.
Thank you, Celeste. Will do. Okay, moving on with the meeting. Financial. Accept ECA report. Recommendation that the Board of Education accept the ECA report ending February 28th, 2021, as provided by the treasurer and recommended by the Assistant Superintendent of Management Services. Do I have a motion?
I'll motion.
Betsy, thank you. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Tony. Are there any questions or discussion? Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, approve ECA advisor position. Be it resolved that the Board of Education hereby approves the addition of grade 6 advisor to the list of extracurricular activities in the DTA contract effective with the start date of the 2021-2022 school year. The stipend for this ECA shall be $803 per year. Do I have a motion?
I'll motion.
Thank you, Shane. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Teresa. Are there any questions? Okay, take a vote. All those in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Any abstentions? Approve adjusted AD stipend. Be it resolved that the Board of Education hereby agrees to adjust the stipend of the athletic director as listed under extracurricular activities, Article X, Item E of the current DTA collective bargaining agreement, effective with the start date of the 2021-2022 school year. Do I have a motion?
I'll motion.
Thank you, Tony. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Diane. Any questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, other items, accept CSE minutes. Recommendation that the Board of Education accept the recommendation of the CSE, CPSE meetings and their minutes from March 2nd, 2021 meetings. Do I have a motion?
I'll motion.
Shane, do I have a second?
I'll second.
I heard Betsy first. Thank you, Betsy. Any questions or discussion? Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And Celeste, I abstain.
Yep.
Okay, moving on to personnel items. Accept resignation, coach resignation, M. Gilmeister. Recommendation that the Board of Education accept the resignation of Mark Gilmeister, boys varsity track and field coach, effective March 3rd, 2021. Do I have a motion?
I'll motion.
Thank you, Teresa. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Tony. Are there any questions or discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay. Accept resignation for retirement, C. Benato. Recommendation that the Board of Education accept the resignation for retirement of Carol Benato, aide, effective June 30th, 2021. Do I have a motion?
I'll motion.
I got Betsy and then I got Diane. Diane, will you second?
Sure.
Thank you. Any questions? All right. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Right. Approve conditions of employment between the district and the Duanesburg Support Staff Association, DSSA. Be resolved that the Board of Education hereby approves the conditions of employment by and between the district and the Duanesburg Support Staff Association, setting forth the terms and conditions beginning July 1st, 2021 and ending June 30th, 2024, approves payments thereunder, and authorizes the superintendent to execute said agreement. Do I have a motion?
I'll make a motion.
Thank you, Diane. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Shane. Any questions or discussion? All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? Any abstentions? Thank you. Approve appointments. Recommendation that the Board of Education approve the following appointments as recommended by the superintendent, principals, and athletic director. ECA appointments are for the applicable 2020-2021 school year and sports season, beginning with preseason practice and ending at the conclusion of the season, including sectional play. All appointments are employees at will, subject to fingerprint clearance. An appointment at this time does not guarantee employment for the entire school season, term, or year. The salary for ECA clubs, activities, and athletic persons will be prorated based on the length of the season, term, year. The operation of certain clubs and activities are subject to COVID-19 related restrictions. And the nominations are as listed: music director, volunteer girls soccer coach, boys varsity track and field coach, and teacher aide, noting that Brian Keller was stricken from the agenda. Do I have a motion?
I'll motion.
Thank you, Shane. Do I have a second?
Teresa, you're muted.
I'll second. Thank you.
There she
I
is.
figured that out.
Any questions or discussion? Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, approve substitute appointment. Be it resolved that the Board of Education hereby approves the appointment of Lisa.
Five.
Five? Thank you, Jim.
Yep.
As a long-term substitute to cover the maternity leave and absence of teacher Jillian, and I'm not going to get that one. Thank you. UPK teacher effective retroactive to February 22nd, 2021. No term of employment is conferred by this resolution of appointment, and Mrs. Fai's employment may be terminated at any time. Do I have a motion?
I'll motion.
Thank you, Betsy. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Diane. Any questions or discussions? Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, that moves us to the discussion section of our agenda, and the item listed is the 2021-2022 board meeting calendar. Jim, do you have any comments on that, or Celeste?
It's just that it's the first draft of the board meeting next year, and if you could please take a look at the if you have anything that conflicts with any of these dates, now's a good time to adjust them before it's finalized. And then we'll talk about it again at the next meeting.
The only thing I want to point out is the annual BOCES meeting for their administrative budget and everything like what you folks will be meeting for on April 21st at 8 o'clock in the morning. Next year, the budget is on April 27th. So I planned a board meeting. I stuck it in there. It is in red. As much as I would like to say you can adopt the school budget, we cannot. So that would have to be before that date. The reason why is we have to mail out any military ballots on April 22nd by law. So the budget has to be adopted before that. So it's a Wednesday. April 27th is a Wednesday. You can have a board meeting if you want, or if you want to keep it as a standalone meeting for just BOCES. You know, that's discussion for, you know, within you folks.
Thank you for that clarification.
Yep.
Did anybody else have any questions about it when you took a first look? So we'll take a look at it, Jim, and let you guys know if there's anything, everyone bring any comments back.
Thank you very much.
Sure. Anything else for discussion? If not, we are at the close of our meeting. So I'm going to board action to adjourn the meeting. Do I have a motion?
I'll make a motion.
Thank you, Diane. Is there a second? Thank you, Betsy. I saw Betsy's hand come up. I don't think we have any questions or discussion, but I'll open it up. So all those in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? Any abstentions? The board meeting ends at 7:44 p.m. Celeste, thank you.
Okay, thank
And
you.
thank you, everybody.
Thanks.
Have a good evening.
You too.
Thank you. Good night.
Good night.
Good night.
Oh, goodness. Bye.